Wasabi guys, let's talk about 10 commander cards that could use a reprint. A card never being reprinted is not the only reason why a card should be reprinted, but when you notice the price start to climb over the years, it might be worth considering it for Wizards of the Coast. I apologize in advance if I sound a little bit under the weather. I have been battling a cold over the past couple days, so please bear with me. The first card we're going to look at is the Ozolith. This is about as new as I want to get. I don't want to go anything 2021, 2022, because it's a bit obvious. Yes, any of those Elder Dragons from Baldur's Gate. We'll probably be looking for reprints of those in the future, but there are still a lot of cards that have not been reprinted or cards that are still really expensive that have been around for quite some time now. And the Ozolith, for what it does, at only 1 mana, may end up being one of the best value cards of all time. Any type of counters deck where you want to put any kind of counter on your own creatures is going to want the Ozolith because it helps you recover. It's a low mana investment, which means that even if it's removed, it's not going to be that much of an inconvenience. And on top of that, it offers you a lot of combo potential. Because yes, putting a ton of counters on a single creature allows you to have a lot of fun with creatures that remove those counters for special abilities. Really the only thing that does this, which is why it's so expensive, and the only thing that does this, it's the best value for the mana possible. I mean, even if they made this a 3 mana artifact, people would still play it. The next one is another artifact. It has been technically reprinted, but it's on the list. It's the Chain Veil. I don't usually count the list as a quality reprint, just because I don't think the supply is there. But we have another artifact here that's pretty much the only artifact that does this. Synergizing with loyalty abilities, giving your planeswalkers the ability to use them again. It's another one with combo potential. If you are in that kind of deck with planeswalkers, you can untap this, you can copy the abilities, keep your turn going, and have a lot of fun. Again, the general focus for my videos, they tend to be mostly Commander related, and this is one of those where you know you're just going to be playing it in Commander. Next, we have a Commander Precon card from 2017, Scale Lord Reckoner. Whenever a dragon you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, destroy target non-land permanent that player controls. Really offering variety for dragon decks, especially in that 5-color or dragon deck, where most of what you're used to is tokens or burn, just overwhelming your opponents with quality creatures. Well, Scale Lord Reckoner, being a mono-white dragon, offers you something very unique, and that is a pseudo-protection. It's not going to absolutely protect your dragons, but if your dragons become the targets of spells or abilities, you can get some revenge, which is always fun. Whenever you're able to threaten your opponent's non-land permanents, it's going to make them a lot less likely to want to target your things. And seeing as dragons seem to be the flavor of the year, Scale Lord Reckoner is a bit pricey. Next we have Fierce Guardianship, kind of the no-brainer card of the video. If you're playing a deck with counterspells, you've probably considered Fierce Guardianship. If you're like me and you don't feel like justifying spending $50 to $70 on what is essentially a free negate, then you're probably not including this in most of your decks. It's another case of a Commander Precon card only being included in one Precon deck, so down the road it becomes a lot harder to find, and especially if it's a good Commander Precon card, which this totally is. Next we have a card from Mirrodin Besieged, Phyrexian Crusader. Not exactly the most played card you're going to find in this video, but it is one of the more unique creatures you're going to find. You don't have to include it in Infect exclusively. You could include it into Keywords Matters decks, because you are getting First Strike and protection from red and from white. And there are commanders that can take advantage of that protection. It's really the first one we're looking at here, where it's been a long time without even the consideration of a reprint. It's probably the infect factor, which I think gets a bad rap in 2022. You do have to remember, instead of dealing normal damage, you have to deal those -1/-1 counters to creatures and poison counters to players. So if this is your only source of infect, it's not going to be super practical to throw it into a lot of other decks for that reason. Again, its strength is the keywords. For what it does, you are getting a quality creature. Next we have Archfiend of Despair. It's another no-brainer card, and especially if we're talking about Battle Bond, a lot of those have a premium. And this mythic, which was even harder to find, pretty much curb stops any life gain strategy. Your opponents not only can't gain life, but at the beginning of each end step, they have to lose life equal to the life they lost already that turn. You get this on a quality creature, 6/6 flyer. There's a lot to like about this if your favorite commander is Kalia. Pretty much anything that would normally be super expensive, like 8 or 9 and above, you can cheat them into play. It's a nice, spiteful card. I love the flavor of it, but it is, again, super expensive, so I think it needs to be reprinted sometime soon. We have another Precon exclusive card, Tempt with Vengeance. I love Tempting Offer, and I wish that they would bring back something like this, because it's not just Group Hug. There is a clear advantage in playing this. It's that whoever accepts the offer is also giving you an additional number of those 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste. It's worth pointing out that most of the time when it comes to this card, if you're using it to win and people can obviously see that you're going to win, they're not going to accept the offer. So you have to look at the worst case scenario, which just means you're getting the normal number of X creatures. It's still good though because they're creatures with haste. So everything I said before about potentially winning would still apply if you have a way to give those tokens +2 power, or any type of buff, maybe an overrun ability. The haste here is what really matters, and that you're not putting too much more mana into this spell than that additional 1 red. It's a card that hasn't been reprinted since 2013. You know it's going to be a commander card, so the next time we get a red precon deck, Wizards of the Coast, please give us a Tempt with Vengeance. Another red card we have is Terror of the Peaks. Again, this is 2020, relatively new, but not that new to where it's unreasonable to expect them to reprint it immediately. We know that Pioneer is going to have an impact, and we know that with Pioneer, you're going to see cards like Terror of the Peaks. Anything that was exceptionally strong in Standard is likely going to have an impact in that format as well. But in Commander, it's also going to have an impact. Burn is incredibly relevant, and ETB Burn is a very strong and viable strategy. Not only that, but spells your opponents cast that have to target it are going to cost them an additional 3 life, so it's even more burn. All of this on a very decent cost of 5 mana. Again, most dragons with over-the-top abilities, you're going to see more often that they're 7 mana and above. With Terror of the Peaks, you have one of the few 5 mana dragons that is this powerful. Goes back to what I was saying with Scale Lord Reckoner as well. This has been the year of the dragons, so you're going to see a market impact with cards like Terror of the Peaks because of commanders like Miram. If you can get multiple Terror of the Peaks, it's going to allow you to win the game faster. Next, we have Branching Evolution from Jumpstart. I like this card because I think we're over doubling season in Commander. It's still a powerful card, but for 5 mana and the most telegraphed win con option, you get the feeling that the gimmick has worn out its welcome. Branching Evolution I think is a little bit more practical because while it could be a part of the same combos, it's not this do-it-all card where it gives you additional tokens as well. You're just getting the +1/+1 counters. And it's good that it's only +1/+1 counters because you're not going to have the whole Planeswalker synergy being busted that you would with things like Doubling Season. It's also better costed at only 3 mana. So if you want to play on a lower mana curve, this is going to help you out significantly. It's another one from 2020 where it's still relatively new, but I feel like we are getting to that point where you could see it reprinted and being one of the better reprints in a precon deck. And the last card here is Captain Sisay, or Sisay. I'm not good with names, so please leave me alone. This did get a Secret Lair reprint, but you know my opinion on Secret Lairs. They're not quality reprints, they don't really increase the supply, and that's really what matters when it comes to reprints. How much easier is this card to find, and is a store going to overcharge for something like this because they can't find enough of them? And that's been the case with Captain Sisay for a long time. Invasion's a really old set. For the only other reprint to be a From the Vault, I think it's impressive that it's been that long. And with Dominaria United, we received a ton of legendary card support, which means that Captain Sisay is even more relevant than she's ever been. Goes back to what I was saying at the beginning though, a card could still be reprinted and need yet another reprint. And I think we're getting closer to needing another Captain Sisay. So anyway, let me know what you think about these 10 cards that need a reprint in the comment section below. Let me know if any cards that you think are too expensive, a bit pricey without stating the obvious. We know things like the Great Henge are really up there, but I've already talked about that card a ton. And of course, things that have been reprinted several times. Goes without saying, probably needs a reprint if they're still expensive. Again, subscribe if you have not already. Commander Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.